Hello, welcome to the video. I'm going to be talking about my favorite pick of hero in the Dota 2 Diretide game mode, as well as some general tips and strategies so that you can do well and also enjoy the game. Let's go. And who is that hero? It's Slaughter. And Slaughter's a really good pick because in this mode you constantly want to be fighting. You have such a low cooldown on your respawn that you're always fighting. And the great thing about Slaughter is that each one of his abilities is on a short cooldown. You have sprint, your teammates help them out, get to enemies to fight them. You can pass candy back to the well or onto your allies to get it back to the base. And that makes sprint a really good ability. The next ability that Slaughter has, and it's probably the worst one, at least early on, is the Slithering Crush. So that's AOE. It means that heroes can't get Lincolns to block it. So Slithering Crush, you can stun multiple people. It does a decent amount of damage, and it combos really well with Bash of the Deep. So you basically build up your counters of bash. You get a guaranteed bash on one of the enemy, and then you can follow it up by chain stunning them with the crush, and then continuing to bash them some more with your passive. So yeah, its second ability is not great by itself, but when you use it with other abilities, it works out pretty fantastic. That's the Slithering Crush. Bash. Everybody knows what Bash does. When you get an Echo Saber, then it really solves the problems of actually getting those hits in. The last ability is the ultimate, which you might think it's just a damage amp, but the important thing really I feel about Corrosive Haze is that it gives vision. And vision is seriously important in Diretide because there are no observer wards available for purchase. You have a significant advantage by being able to see the enemy, see their items, and also how much candy they're holding. For Slaughter's talents, at level 10 I pick plus 20 damage, at level 15 I go for the plus 60 bash damage, at 20 this one I choose the 25% lifesteal, and 25 I'll go for the Corrosive Haze Undispellable. So I think all of these are pretty self-explanatory, except for maybe the level 20 pick. I'm going for 25% lifesteal. The reason I chose this is just because that you do a lot of damage with your right clicks, especially when you amp up the damage with Corrosive Haze, and going with extra Corrosive Haze armor reduction is good in theory, but at the same time, you can potentially get blown up before you actually make an impact, right? So this kind of balances out the damage that you've been picking in the early talent stages. It balances out with something that keeps you alive, but at the same time, 25% is a lot. It's the same as what you get from a Satanic without the active component. Slaughter skill set is perfect for the game mode. Also, Slaughter's not a hero that really gets focused. There's not a lot of attention on him. He doesn't get banned that much, so you'll always be able to pick him, unlike something like your Wind Rangers or your Shadow Shamans. I constantly see those heroes getting banned. Other good picks for this mode as well are Wraith King. So if you rush Nags, then you can just constantly be fighting. You can also buy time to fight or to get candies back or to pass them on to someone who's still alive. That's really the power of Wraith King, just to get an axe first. Of course, when you're playing that sort of hero, the early game's a bit rough. Same thing goes for someone like Storm Spirit. I also think is a good pick. a Monkey King kind of functions in the same way as Slardar in the sense that loves to fight, can kind of get around by leaping, and Jingu Mastery is sort of similar to the Bash in the sense that you need to get counters to proc it, but Echo Saber and other items like Ags uh, really help out for being able to fight all the time. Warlock is also a really good hero, pretty annoying to play against, just wins the fights, and later on you still have your Golem, which can spawn on death with the timer. So those are other pretty good heroes, I feel. And alright, how do you want to build Slardar? So Slardar's items, what I always do is starting item, Orb of Venom, a stick, and Boots of Speed. So why do we get stick instead of wand? It's because the wand only gives you extra stats as well as extra charges. But if you're making sure that you use your stick charges when they get to the max, then you can just wait for the cooldown and use it again. And you're always going to get more stacks because you're just fighting so often. Okay, you're fighting all the time. Then with the boots of speed, you can build that into either your phase boots or treads, which entirely situational. You can go for phase boots just if you need the extra move speed or you need the armor dealing with physical damage opponents. Then from there, Silver Edge is a pretty good option. That's what I'd go for. Then it'll kind of be your next big item. So if you're greedy, you can go for an Assault Cuirass or an Ags, which has a lot of benefits. With Slithering Crush, you'll create a puddle that'll give you status resistance. It'll also give you bonus move speed and armor. So it gives you a lot, really. BKB is what I'd go for if the game is a bit hard, if the enemies have disables or a lot of magic damage. And I mean, at some point you kind of want to accumulate all of those items. The last one I'd say is Sanjin Yasha. So Sanjin Yasha is pretty good, gives you that extra status resist. It stacks diminishingly, but you build so much status resist when you're in that puddle. When you have the Sanjin Yasha, and also if you have something like a Titan Sliver, it's good. Okay, so those are the picks. The last thing I want to talk about is general tips. So I'll give you 5 tips to how you should actually approach the whole game. Number 1 is scarecrows. So scarecrows are seriously important. You want to try and contest scarecrows as much as you can, unless it's hopeless and you're obviously going to lose a fight there, and you're holding candies that you would be giving over to the enemy. So don't do something stupid like that. But try to get the scarecrows where you can. It gives you neutral items, and it gives you that candy advantage. Tip number 2 is in the early game, focus on last hits and denies. So if you last hit a creep, the candy will go over to you automatically. If you deny your own creeps, then the candy will come. I think you still need to pick it up. But in the early game, so I'm really talking about the first round. First round, just focus on last hits and denies. You don't want to be doing something like trying to focus a well or focus the buildings or the guardians so much, because they are pretty strong, and it takes time to chip those down when you're a low level. You can really try and get round 1 in the bag by focusing on your last hits and denies. Tip number 3 is force the buildings if you're a pushing team. If you've got that lineup and you're able to push, just do it. Just get that building, and it really makes things great, easy when you're kind of playing into the later parts of the game, and the enemy's always thinking about the potential for your team to go for candy steals at their well. Related to that is tip number 4. This is for the start of the later rounds. So this is rounds 2, possibly, but definitely 3 and onwards. At this point, your heroes are decently strong. Guardians, I don't believe they actually scale in their uh, stats or anything, so the Guardians are pretty easy to take down later on in the game. Um, what you should do is basically at the start, if you have that sort of pushing lineup, as I mentioned in tip number 3, then really try and force an early fight at the enemy side so that you can take down the golem and push that building. The kind of flip side of that is if you're no do that if you're a pushing lineup. If you don't have a pushing lineup, but the enemy does, then you are probably best just anticipating that the enemy is going to try and do that and to keep an eye out for it. Then you can launch your counterattack. Tip number 5, this is the last one, and that is steal candy. It's super important to do this. If you've got the opportunity, if you followed my other tips and you've taken their building, then you can go for candy steals. And this is great because it serves the purpose of lowering the enemy score while at the same time increasing your own. So it's a win-win for you. You really, anytime that I can do that, I'll do that. I won't go for the last hits or anything when the candy's open, unless the enemy has 0 candies in their well. Then you've done the right thing. There's no more candy for you to take, buddy. Yeah, those are my 5 tips. I hope you found this helpful. Thanks for watching. Bye. Understood. What? This thing's already up? Kill him. Okay, they're too weak. Get out! Titan Sliver, man! Titan Sliver, dude! Oh my god, that was close. Alright, TY.